What makes people join cult? Whether the person is alone or has a family, many individuals become members due to a severe lack of something. This could be affection at home, compassion from strangers, a sense of belonging to something greater, love or someone or something to believe in. When the leader has the charisma and charm to explain things so that others follow him or her, a cult is born. His or her actions and showing the others in the organization what to do or how to act, and what to believe in, are often enough to keep them from leaving. There is usually an agenda, a reason to have faith. This is often calling to the lack of faith in religion or secular concerns. Another reason people join is frequently why they remain or become stuck within the organization. There is a psychological or physical dependency of the members to the leader. This could involve drugs. It could include the need they require, or it could entail more emotional or mental dependencies of love, compassion or comfort. The individual's minds are reprogrammed to think as the leader wants, and the leader's goals are advanced through charming each person into his or her view of the world of universe. It is keeping the others locked into this mindset that ensures they remain until the end or follow, as the cult travels from one location to another. Characteristics of a cult. Authoritarian control. Cultism hinges on encouraging maximum dependency. Extremist beliefs. Cult members hold two very dogmatic and extreme beliefs. Isolation from society. As soon as new members join a cult, other adherents work hard to isolate them from family members and friends. Now let's dive into the horrendous things done by the cults. The Cannibal Family. An 8-year-old boy was skinned and his flesh fed to cannibal relatives after his mother kept him locked in a cellar, a court is heard. Evil Klara Maurova, a member of a sinister religious cult, wept in court as she admitted torturing her son Andrej and his 10-year-old brother Jakub. The court also heard allegations that relatives had partially skinned 8-year-old Andrej and then eaten the raw human flesh. The two boys told how their mother and relatives had stubbed cigarettes out on their bare skin, whipped them with belts, and tried to drown them. The court heard how the family had sexually abused them and even made them cut themselves with knives. They said they were kept in cages or handcuffed to tables and made to stand in their own urine for days. The sick abuse was discovered when a man in Brno in the Czech Republic installed a TV baby monitor to keep watch on his newborn child, but it picked up a signal from an identical monitor next door, showing one of the victims beaten, naked and chained in a cellar. Sick Maurova is understood to have entitled it, so she could gloat over her victims suffering from the comfort of her kitchen. Police were called, and the boy and his brother, as well as what appeared to be a 13-year-old girl, were freed. At that time police did not realize the 13-year-old, who had been formally adopted, was really 34-year-old Barbora Skrylova, one of the children's torturers. She later ran away to Norway, but was found earlier this year by Czech cops, who brought her back to the Czech Republic to face trial. Her brother, 8-year-old Andrej, had been locked and chained in the cellar by his mother Klara for months. He had been gagged so he could not scream and beaten as well. It later emerged his brother Jakub had also been abused. Maurova has admitted abusing her children, but she said she had been manipulated by her sister Katerina and Skrylova. Katerina Maurova and Skrylova and another relative are all accused of involvement in the abuse of the boys. The court has also heard claims that the abuse of the boys was coordinated by a man known only as the Doctor, who sent mobile phone text messages to the Maurova sisters, telling them how to abuse the two boys. Angel's Landing. Angel's Landing is the name of the 20-acre compound outside of Wichita, Kansas, where Lou Castro and a small group of people lived an inexplicably extravagant life in the early 2000s. Castro's followers were convinced that he was an angel and a seer who could look into the future and know when you were going to die. Already suspicious of Castro's luxury vehicles and money that no one could explain, there was no paper trail on Castro. Local law enforcement took an active interest when Patricia Hughes, a member of the Angel's Landing community, tragically turned up dead on the compound in 2003. Then when Patricia's husband died in a freak accident in 2006, local detective Ron Goodwin dived into every bit of personal and financial information he could find on the people living at Angel's Landing. What he found was disturbing. Expensive life insurance policies were taken out on people in Castro's circle and cashed in by members when someone in the makeshift family accidentally died. This pattern occurred around every 2.5 years, but the detective couldn't find any records for the mysterious leader Castro. In 2010, Castro moved from Kansas to Tennessee and adopted a new identity, but he was soon arrested by the FBI for aggravated identity theft and fraudulent use of a social security card number. During Castro's 2-year stint in federal prison, Goodwin and the FBI discovered, according to the Wichita Eagle, that Lou Castro was really Daniel Perez, a man from Texas with many police reports, including a case involving sex crimes against two girls, 11 and 14, until he fled Texas. Through interviews with members of the commune, they uncovered Perez's sexual abuse of women and girls at Angel's Landing, including Sarah McGrath, who alleged that Perez raped her regularly for years. Sadly, she was just one of his many victims. More witnesses came forward, accusing Perez of abuse and pointing to him for the murder of Patricia Hughes. Perez was charged with 28 felonies, and in February 2015, he was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 80 years in prison. Children of God. Initially called Teens for Christ, Children of God was founded in 1968 by rogue preacher David Berg in Huntington Beach, California. Attracting young runaways and hippies, Berg preached a kind of worship that combined the ways of Jesus Christ with the free love movement of the 60s. Group living, zealous proselytizing, and isolated communes were all pillars of the Children of God Church. Members, who amounted to 15,000 people across the world at its peak, didn't work or go to school. The COG didn't believe in the nuclear family, so children were grouped together and lived separately from their parents. In the late 1970s, COG became notorious for the sexual practices that one of Berg's own daughters later described as religious prostitution. Berg coined the term flirty fishing, a sexual practice in which women would allegedly have sex with men to bring them into the cult. Berg promoted and encouraged the sexualization of children within the COG community. As Berg manipulated the COG family with his sadistic practices, members started leaving the community, including the families of actors Joaquin Phoenix and Rose McGowan, who both grew up in Children of God communes. Former COG members began coming forward in the early 1990s, describing an environment that permitted and encouraged the physical and sexual abuse of young children. Ricky Dupay appeared on a talk show in 1993 and revealed that he'd been ordered by the group to rape a 10-year-old. Dupay later committed suicide, like many other members of the group, including Berg's son Ricky Rodriguez, who was sexually abused throughout his life by his father and the group. Although Berg died in 1994, while under FBI investigation, the Children of God cult continues to exist and now goes by the name Family International, although the group claims that the horrific practices are a thing of the past. You can watch a whole documentary called Children of God on Netflix now. Church of the Lamb of God. Dubbed by media as the Mormon Manson, the Church of the Lamb of God was started by Orville Lebron in Chihuahua, Mexico, after he clashed and left his brother Joel's sect. Lebron convinced his followers that he received direct instructions from God, which included using an abandoned Mormon doctrine, blood atonement, that allows the killing of sinners to cleanse them of evil. Foundation and fratricide. By the late 1960s, Orville Lebron began preaching against his brother, accusing his brother of crimes against their faith. Proclaiming that he was the true successor to his father, Orville began the Church of the Firstborn of the Lamb of God and named himself the president. Some of Joel's followers, including Daniel Ben Jordan and the Chinoeth and Rios families, switched their allegiance to Orville. In 1972, Orville orchestrated the murder of his brother, the first victim of the blood atonement policy. One of the assassins, Daniel Ben Jordan, was later arrested for the murder, but he was released when witnesses were too afraid to testify against him. The other killer, Gamaliel Rios, remained free. To Orville's surprise, Joel's followers did not flock to his side, instead they advocated for Orville's arrest. He was convicted of planning the murder, but freed a year later by an appellate court. While imprisoned, Orville continued to release pamphlets and books, insisting that he was the Mormon one mighty and strong, and that, as God's representative on earth, he could decide who should die for their sins. He was most interested in executing his brother Verlin, who Joel's followers had elected as their new leader. Fearing for his life, Verlin had gone into hiding. In an effort to flush him out, on December 26, 1974, Orville's underage 13th wife Rena Chinoeth and her brothers Mark and Duane C. Wetha raided Los Molinos. They threw firebombs at houses and shot at residents, killing 2 young men and injuring 13. They failed in their primary goal. Verlin had just moved his families out of the colony to Nicaragua. Orville was arrested for masterminding the raid, but was released due to lack of evidence. Increasingly upset by the violence, Nomi Zerate, a wife of Bud Chinoeth, father of 2 of Orville's wives, threatened to leave and go to the police. On Orville's orders, his 10th wife Onda White, drove Zaraid into the desert and killed her. Her body has never been found. Lebron had 51 children with 13 different wives and over 2 decades amassed hundreds of followers who allegedly murdered more than 20 people on behalf of Lebron and his orders. Later Mexico authorities arrested Lebron in 1979 and handed him over to the FBI, where he was charged for the murder of another polygamous sect leader and jailed for life in Utah. Although Lebron died in prison in 1981, his reign of terror still persisted for several years, as he left behind a hit list of people he believed were traitors. People's Temple. In the 1950s, Indiana native Jim Jones founded a church that he claimed promoted socialism and equality, with religious elements of Christianity. Initially, he was little more than a charismatic hustler who faked faith healings by having audience plants pull chicken livers out of congregants' mouths. But as the years progressed, he demanded more and more followers. In the early 1970s, Jones moved his group to California and set them up in a commune-like settlement in Redwood Valley. Size and scope. Despite exaggerated claims by the temple of 20,000 or more members, one source claims its greatest actual registered membership was around 3,000. However, 5,000 individual membership card photos were located in temple records after its dissolution. Regardless of its official membership, the temple also regularly drew 3,000 people to its San Francisco services alone. Of particular interest to politicians was the temple's ability to produce 2,000 people for campaign work or attendance in San Francisco on only 6 hours' notice. By the mid-1970s, in addition to its locations in Redwood Valley, Los Angeles and San Francisco, the temple had established satellite congregations in almost a dozen other California cities. 68 Jones mentioned locations in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Ukiah, Bakersfield, Fresno, and Sacramento. The temple also maintained a branch college tuition program and dormitory at Santa Rosa Junior College. At the same time, Jones and his church earned a reputation for aiding the city's poorest citizens, especially racial minorities, drug addicts, and the homeless. The temple made strong connections to the California state welfare system. During the 1970s, the church owned and ran at least 9 residential care homes for the elderly, 6 homes for foster children, and a state-licensed 40-acre ranch for developmentally disabled persons. The temple elite handled members' insurance claims and legal problems, effectively acting as a client advocacy group. For these reasons, sociologist John Hall described the temple as a charismatic bureaucracy, oriented toward Jones as a charismatic leader, but functioning as a bureaucratic social service organization. Jones eventually came to believe that nuclear war was imminent and moved his followers again to the South American country of Guyana, which he thought would be outside the potential danger zone. The group lived there for several years as the People's Temple Agricultural Project, but after former members started speaking out against the church, San Francisco Congressman Leo Ryan decided to travel to Jonestown to investigate claims of abuse. Temple security guards opened fire on Ryan's group, and back at the settlement, Jones ordered his followers to drink a cyanide-laced beverage. This is where the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" originates. A total of 918 people died in the incident, and until 9/11, it was the largest loss of American civilian life in history. Thank you for sticking with me and watching this video all the way to the end. It means a lot to me that you took the time to watch and engage with my content. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me, and for supporting my work. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.